Hello. I need to start with some really, really cool news. Two of the short films that I'm going to be talking about today, because I've started audience testing and we're going to talk about what that means and blah, blah, blah. One of them has gotten into two festivals. One has already been, and the second one is happening this week. And that's the action thing called Caravan. Based on a true story, the three girls arguing about a menstrual cup has not just gotten into a festival in Germany, it's actually been sold to a distribution company that's distributes short film all over Europe to play in front of feature films. That's the kind of stuff that makes me feel like, yeah, I am a filmmaker. Anyway. Yes, so I've been approved for testing, and I've started testing. I've tested 5 short films, these ones. 40 people have seen it. My supervisor said, just test it on a couple of people first, just to see if your questionnaire needs work. And that was the plan. But then Easter holidays happened, and clearly nobody had money this Easter holiday, because when I put out like, hey, does anybody want to be participants? Everybody was here and looking for something to do. So all of a sudden, my Easter holiday was just showing people short films and having them fill out this questionnaire that's currently in front of you. And yeah, the questionnaire does need a little bit of work. The last question is badly formatted and formulated. And I was told ahead of time that there's no... I showed people... 20 of the people saw the frameless version first and then the cinema version. And 20 people saw the cinema version first and then the frameless version. Because at the bottom of the questionnaire, I have the question, which did you prefer? I was told in advance that you don't have to do that, just show them the one time, because the second time somebody watches something, it's colored by the first viewing. They were 100% right, but I did want to see which did you prefer. That was completely unnecessary, because the people who have seen the cinema version first score a lot higher on the frameless second time, because they get the story, whereas the people who see frameless first lose several story elements because they're looking in the wrong place often. So even the which did you prefer gets skewed no matter what, so there's no point doing that going forward. Anyway, but okay, so overall test scores say, from at least based on what I've made now, and granted, I have been trying to translate the language of film into a frameless setting, into VR. So it's not a... that's what we're testing here. Does that work, and how does that affect stuff? And across the board, there's only one single time that either enjoyment of the story, enjoyment of the viewing experience, enjoyment of... emotional immersion was higher in frameless, and that was enjoyment of the story in one single film. Apart from that, all of the films score significantly higher in cinema. So at least in these tests, at least the frameless immersion comes at the cost of enjoyment of story, enjoyment of the viewing experience, and emotional engagement. The question immersion is actually quite interesting. There's not a good Norwegian translation for immersion. I have to use like a sense of presence, but then people are arguing with me, like, but I feel present in a film when I watch it. So I'm like, yeah. So actually, the number for immersion doesn't go as high as I had expected it to in frameless, apart from a few of them. The one that does score the highest, there's a couple of really interesting things going on there. First of all, it's the one that's supposed to be a horror. It's not that scary, so it's more like a psychological thriller. And it's the only one at that point that we had shot using a fisheye lens that sees 180 degrees. The other ones, I was trying to use longer lenses to create more separation and blah, blah, blah. I've talked about this before. If you're interested, just go back and watch Just go back and watch the other videos. So yeah, that one, there's a couple of thoughts I have about why it might score better. I actually think it just suits the medium quite a lot, because there's a kind of an uncanny valley effect to watch something that pretends to be real in a frameless, like a head-mounted display. And the mood of the piece is unnerving, uncanny, so I think it suits it. And there was a big question in my mind: is this the one that scores highest because we were shooting it on 180-degree lens? The second highest scoring film in Frameless is Stay, which is very artistic and abstracted and shooting on very long lenses. So I decided to test this. Looking at these two frameless versions, the 24mm is the best compromise, because 10mm just makes it feel like I'm sitting at the other side of the table, not emotionally engaging. So we made another short film. When I say we, I actually need to say one of my mentees, which you've heard about before, Michelle Collins, photo here, wrote and directed a short film starring Tiril, who you've also seen many times. These people are very important to my PhD, and they're going away for half a year, so don't do that. It's bad. Actually, they're going to go to Australia. It's going to be awesome. They're going to have fun. Anyway, yes. So we made a short film where we shot it both. It's one of the... I've kind of made a term called poetic frameless, which is like the poetic short films where there's the... how do I explain that? So... the short film Stay, which I've talked about before, like it's all image based, there's no dialogue. This one actually does have a voiceover, but the images are supposed to like work on their own, and the story is inside the image. That's what I'm calling poetic frameless. And so we shot it on the fisheye 10mm lens for full frame, which shoots 180 degrees. We also shot it frameless on 50mm, the same way that we shot Stay, the second highest scoring frameless short film, and we shot it for cinema. It's all of this is shot in the exact same days and the exact same locations. Interesting thing is that we tried to lean into the films that people seemed to like in Frameless. They had a much slower edit than the other ones. Same with the horror movie, actually. Very slow edit in that. Wide images that let people look around more. And like that film actually really leans into the whole idea of you being there. Basically, the camera puts you in the place of the audience quite often, or the main character. Anyway, I've spoken about that one before. Anyway. So there are several shots in the cinema version that just cannot work in Frameless, like a close-up of a shoulder, a close-up of a face here. We've already discovered these things don't work, so we're being very strict on the rules. On the rules for Frameless. And just composing longer shots inside each setting. And I thought I was testing, is the 180-degree version best, or is the version we shot for Stay best, where we shot... So the difference is 10mm fisheye lens or 50mm lens, both on full-frame lenses. The 50mm one creates less distracting backgrounds because the background is compressed and it's more out of focus. And in many ways, it kind of creates the frameless version of a close-up. Because it puts your attention on the character and not the space. And while I do feel very strongly that the 50mm version is much better than the 10mm version for poetic frameless, because you want the attention to be on the person and not the space. I keep trying to break the reality of virtual reality. And that's what I thought I was testing. What I actually learned is that as soon as Michelle showed me the cinema version, it became very, very clear that there's no point trying to fit the square peg of poetic filmmaking into the frameless hole. It just doesn't. It is such a oh, it is a way less emotional experience. The lack of close-ups, the lack of compositions. Like, for instance, there's one shot where she is the main character is silhouetted against a big ocean, and she's down in the corner of the image, and it just screams loneliness. In Frameless, everything has to be center framed. So you just cannot tell stories through compositions. You cannot put emphasis on her face or her mouth screaming through a close-up. So I thought I was going to test on people, do you prefer this frameless version or do you prefer this frameless version? And instead I ended up saying, you know what? I give up on poetic frameless. It just doesn't... The medium of frameless works against poetic filmmaking. And I do worry at this point that that's going to be the overall, for all narrative, that the medium works against that. But that's what we're here to test. So on Sunday, we're shooting a third action movie. This time on the same lens as the horror movie to put you in the scene. Also, I've gotten a 360 camera, so we're going to try to stick that in there as well and do a shot of that as well. And I've basically come to like a milestone where I'm starting to cross things off and say, okay, because all of this is actually supported by the testing as well. So take Stay, for instance, which is the second highest scoring frameless one. The cinema version scores more than a half a point or more in all categories in the cinema version. And in a scale from 1 to 5, half a point is high. So I have my categories that I'm testing. I'm testing comedy, drama, action, and horror. So next drama I do needs to not be poetic. It needs to be... actually, after the action film we're making now, I'm kind of switching methodology completely. So up to this point, I've been thinking like a framed filmmaker and trying to translate the language of film into framed. What I'm doing after Sunday is trying to create the best possible frameless experience I can think of and then translate that into cinema and test that. So if I'm trying my best to just make really good virtual reality experiences, are those narratives still better in cinema? Because if so, then there is like if I as a filmmaker, if my main goal is to emotionally engage audiences, then VR just will not be the medium I choose to use. Anyway, I have some notes down here, so I'm just looking over. Yeah, I think that's most of what I was going to say today. I have started writing my first 360 movie, which is going to be inside a car, 3 people trying to escape to the border because of deportations, kind of like dealing a little bit with what's happening in America. So it's all centered around the experience of the 3 people in the car, and maybe like just puts people in an intense situation and see if maybe that can work. And I've chosen to go with 360 because one of my testers said, you keep using the word frameless, but there is a frame in 180 VR. Like if you move your head too much, there it is. So yeah. So I'm gonna... Yeah, and I have to test more horror. So I've got 2 different people writing on 2 different horrors for me. Actually, one of them, I didn't ask her to, she just started. So that's handy. And other people are helping me with horror because I'm just... It's not a medium, a genre I'm that familiar with. I've actually been forced to watch Haunting of Hill House, and I need therapy hugs. It's a really good show. Really, really good show. Excellent filmmaking, but my gosh. Whew. Anyway, I think we're starting to get to the point. Like, so if this action film that we're making this Sunday is still more engaging in cinema, that is the third time we've done an action film and we can't get it to work. And this one is also kind of like the car, centered around one single location. So it is a valid test of putting a 360 camera in it. If that's less engaging, then I just think you need the close-ups for the intensity of not the impacts, not so much the hitting, but like the reaction of the ows, you know? I learned in the last film, the one that's gotten into a couple of festivals, that the sound of that is not as important as the because that's what makes you feel it. The human sound of pain is more important than the punch when it comes to feeling the action. And I'll try to make the sound design as good as humanly possible to see if that can counteract the lack of frame. And I'll also use like editing, because editing feels a bit harsh in Frameless. So cut on the punches to see if that can accentuate it a little bit. But if cinema is still better, then 3 strikes and you're out, basically. So I'm working on that one was going to happen now, and then there's a couple of comedies coming up because we have to try 3 times with that as well. 2 more horrors coming up, and I have 1 more drama so far. I'm still only in my first year. Like, I have time to come up with more. It'll be fine. Yeah. I keep saying I will release these films so you can see them, but you know what? They're like, I've sent them to some festivals now, so it's still going to be a while. But if you are one of my very, very few subscribers on this channel, send me a message and I will send you links to the films if you want to see.